Okay, on this video I'm only going to be talking about the iPad Pro 9.7-inch version and the 12.9-inch version from an artist's point of view. If you're looking for a video with a full rundown of all the specs and all the differences between the two, then you'll probably find a more appropriate video elsewhere. I'm only going to discuss it from the point of view of using it as an artist drawing and painting device. I do own the 12.9 version, and anyone that's seen my other videos, I give tutorials on how to paint certain things, as well as tutorials on how to use the main app that I use, which is Procreate. I've also given a rundown and kind of like an artist's opinion and review of the 12.9-inch version, a larger iPad Pro. But since posting my initial videos and thoughts of the iPad Pro, obviously we now have the 9.7 version, which is the same dimensions in almost every respect to the previous iPad Airs. And since the release of this, a lot of people have been messaging me and asking me which version of iPad Pro is better to get for an artist's point of view. Now obviously there's no clear-cut answer to this, and it's about personal preference, but I'm just going to give you some of my thoughts and some of the perhaps differences that might matter to an artist. Okay, to begin with, let's just get past the obvious. They are very different sizes. So if screen format and size is an issue for you, and you can only get by with a larger screen area to paint and draw with, then clearly the 12.9 screen version is going to be the one for you. Having said that, personally, before I actually purchased the iPad Pro, the larger version, I did make do with an iPad Air, the first generation version, and I was producing full paintings. I mean, several of the pictures that you can see on the screen of the larger iPad Pro now were produced on the iPad Air 1. And so the smaller screen size of 9.7 I think is perfectly adequate to produce full pieces of work. Having said that, I really do appreciate the extra screen area and canvas size. It really does help immerse yourself in your paintings and drawings, and you really do feel that you can express anything, there's no restriction. Having said that, the stylus that Apple have produced, I shouldn't call it a stylus, they call it the pencil. The pencil now is a lot more accurate than any of the styluses I've used in the past, or styli. So therefore the smaller screen area of 9.7 is less of an issue. It is possible to really pinpoint the tiniest details. You know that your smallest movements is going to translate quite accurately onto the screen, and so the smaller screen size is certainly less of a disadvantage than it would have been on the older versions. Now, there are some differences aside from the screen size that will affect any artist looking to use the tablet. There's not too many, but there are some. One of the major differences is the fact that the larger iPad Pro has double the amount of RAM that the smaller iPad Pro does. Now, in most use cases, that's not going to make a massive difference, but if you are using a program like Procreate, for example, the amount of available memory to run that program is going to make a difference to how much information the program is going to be able to compute at any one time. So this is easily demonstrated or shown in the amount of layers that this particular app, which is Procreate, it's the program I use for almost all of my artwork now. Within the canvas settings, now there are presets here, so you can see there's an A4 here. It might be a little bit small on the screen, but I'm just trying to point it out anyway. And there's an A4 version there. Now on the newer, smaller iPad Pro, if you pick the A4 format, it only gives you a maximum of 19 layers. Now there's significantly more layers available on the larger iPad Pro. If you go for A4, it will allow you up to 57 layers. So if you are the kind of artist that demands lots of layers in your work, and you know that you really are going to make it a very complex piece of work, then maybe 19 layers isn't going to be enough, especially if you increase the pixel count, then obviously the number of layers is going to reduce. So the pixels on an A4 is 2480 by 3508 pixels. If you were doing a very pixel heavy and a high definition image, and you know it's going to be a large image that you're going to want to print out on a large format, you might need to increase the pixel count, in which case the layers may be reduced considerably. However, for most of my art production, I find the A4 format perfectly adequate. But having said all of this, really one of the main differences really is just the amount of layers that you can use. So if I'm going to open up one of my paintings in each of these. Now, this is another issue that I feel needs to be discussed. Now, there is a new feature on the newer iPad Pro of the True Tone, which matches the colour of the screen to the environment. Now, I'm filming this in a room that is quite kind of warm, orangey kind of light, and therefore the screen on this one is changed to fit in with that kind of colour scheme. Now, obviously, the larger iPad Pro doesn't have this feature, and so the screen has stayed truer to the actual colours that I intended. So although this is kind of an interesting new feature, I would not necessarily jump to get this iPad for that feature if you are an artist, because really colour accuracy is perhaps more important than it being easier on the eye. If you're just using it as an e-reader or surfing the internet or even making, Word documents, then that is a really nice feature. But when it comes to producing paintings, I think that colour accuracy comes first, just personally for myself. Now, an area perhaps where the True Tone would be quite useful is if you were just doing a pencil kind of line drawing and you're not working in colour and you just want a nice canvas to actually draw upon. And it would be easier on your eye, just like using a piece of paper in this environment, and then the colours of the surrounding environment and the lighting would change the appearance of the paper. But as soon as you add colour into the mix, then really it needs to be an accurate colour representation. Now, like I've said already, there are differences between the two models, aside from the kind of use from an artist's point of view. If you want to listen to music while you're painting, then you're going to get more volume out of the larger iPad than you will the smaller one. Having said that, I would say that there are advantages to having the smaller iPad. You can still do the same level of detail, it's very accurate, you get all the same advantages that you do on the larger iPad, but then clearly that there's an argument to be made about the portability of the smaller iPad. Now, I guess it comes down fundamentally to the type of artist that you are. Now, if you're looking for a device that you can carry around with you at all times, that will fit into your bag, is not going to be a liability whilst you're carrying it around, and at the same time you're looking for something that you can just whip out your bag, do some sketching on the go, and that's about the limit of what you want to produce on your tablet, then I would firmly recommend getting the smaller iPad. I feel that the larger iPad Pro is for people who want to fully realize complete pieces of work and render it in more detail. Now, I do prefer it as a media device too, but having said that, on a smaller iPad, you're holding it close to you anyway. It's a pretty good media device. But if your main concern is producing full paintings, then I would go for the larger iPad. If you're looking for more sketches that then you can transfer to Photoshop, or even just, stop at a sketchy kind of image, then perhaps you'll be satisfied with the smaller one. Not to say that you can't do full paintings on the smaller iPad. I just prefer the larger format, and I think that most people will. So it's a rather complicated answer to what seems on the face of it quite a simple question. Which is better for art? Well, it depends what kind of artist you are. Both devices, I would say, are incredibly strong tools and will get the job done. The question you have to ask yourself is, do you want a small portable device that perhaps does slightly simpler images with fewer layers, or do you want a device that enables you to do more complex images? Because when it comes to the extra things like the True Tone, for me, they're not interesting enough or different enough to warrant getting this one over that for those features. So it purely comes down to screen size and memory size. So this is 4 gigs of RAM and this is 2 gigs of RAM. I've not noticed any slowdown or any difficulty keeping up with the programs, but obviously it allows you fewer layers to use within your painting. I've not had lots of time to compare the two models, but I am used to using the earlier iPad Air 1 for producing my artwork, and this particular image that I'm showing now was produced on this smaller format. So I'm familiar with the two size formats. I would strongly recommend the larger format if you, like myself, you're looking to do full paintings, but the smaller screen size does not prevent you from doing that. I hope that this video has proved useful and a little bit more informative than the information perhaps that's floating around on the internet. If you want to find out more about how to use this particular app, Procreate, please look through my videos. I've done a tutorial on how to use the app, and I also do painting demonstrations. So I do hope to see you here again. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye now.